Thanks for agreeing to the interview. My name is Daniel, and he's Maurizio, and we are a contact manager and investigator of GIAP Roma, a paranormal researcher, like you.
Yes, lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jayne, why did you approach to this kind of research, in particular dolls and related?
Well, I've always been absolutely fascinated by the paranormal, anything unexplained. But roughly 16 years ago, I attended a spiritualist church in which I saw various psychic mediums give demonstrations. And it was there that I first heard of a case of spirit attachment, so a haunted item or a paranormally active item, as opposed to a paranormally active building or location. So I was absolutely fascinated and initially quite sceptical because I'd only ever heard of haunted buildings and locations. But the more I thought about it and the more I spoke to people about it, the more sense it made to me. So I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to have to look into this a bit more. And like I say, that was nearly 16 years ago now.
What are the techniques you use to define if a doll is haunted or not?
Well, my techniques would probably be in line with any other paranormal investigators' techniques. So initially, if someone contacts us and they feel that they're dealing with a case of potential spirit attachments or a haunted object, we'll normally visit them and we'll take along an array of equipment which you'll know all about, K2 meters, digital recorders, temperature gauges, just trying to establish if there is a sign of paranormal activity. If we are happy that it does seem to be that it's at the centre of an object, if the object's at the centre of the haunting, we'll continue our investigations further. So normally we bring items back here to the research area, and that's when we really get sort of stuck into the investigations and the experimental side of things.
How do you know if an haunting is demoniac or not?
Well, the short answer to that is you don't. You don't always know, at least not initially, whether you're dealing with a darker type of entity. But fortunately, certainly in my experience, and I think generally overall, cases of actual demonic hauntings, of a darker entity being present, are very, very rare. Like I say, thankfully. I think in the time that I've been visiting people's homes and working in this field, I've possibly, maybe on 3 occasions, been in the presence of something a bit darker.
Yeah, it's very dangerous work.
Absolutely. And, I don't consider myself an expert on demons or dealing with anything like that. So if I were in a situation where I felt absolutely I'm in the presence of something a bit darker here, we always call on help from psychic mediums, normally people from the spiritualist church, and we'll draw together group meetings to try and get some expert advice.
What do you think about Annabelle of Warrant?
Yes, Annabelle the doll fascinates me. I find the case very interesting. I've looked into it recently. And I would love to have her here actually under controlled conditions to see if we actually experience anything. I know that some people believe that it's a vessel for a demonic entity, for some kind of trickster, but I don't know. In my experience, if that were the case, I'm not sure a glass cabinet would do much in terms of offering safety and reducing the activity that goes on. But she's interesting.
In case on demonic haunting, what will you do? How do you protect yourself and others from spiritual menaces?
I think you have to assess each case individually. I mean, we seek a lot of advice from experts in the field and also psychic mediums who, 9 times out of 10, they will know fairly quickly whether we're in a room with something that means us harm or has some evil motive. But like I say, we'll protect ourselves in any way we can. I always carry salt. Mm-hmm. Not that I think you're a demonic entity, but I always carry salt. And that's only fairly recently I was advised to do that because I was finding that I was actually suffering from psychic drain, and mental attack, not physical attack, but sort of mental attack, just purely by working with spirits so often. So yeah, I would never attempt to deal with anything on my own, put it that way.
The salt is very power instrument. Better of me. It's a very very powerful
It is,
instrument.
and something so simple.
Yeah. Very 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 simple. What are the instruments usually used? What are the main steps in all paranormal activity research?
Well, I always look initially for measurable indicators of paranormal activity. So before entering a stage of actually trying to communicate through someone's mediumship or divination tools, we tend to approach it from a scientific angle. We need something measurable. We need something we can look at and something we can compare with later investigations. So I'll use an EMF meter, I'll use a motion detector. I've got night vision equipment here, so when I have an item, I study areas down in the basement. It's the only place I can isolate. So we'll set the camera, keep it running, get the trigger objects out, and anything that yourselves will be familiar with as well. We'll look to incorporate as many different measurable methods as we can.
Okay, I see in your videos use the K2, the MF meter.
Yes.
It's a good instrument for you, or is it's better of others?
It's one of many. I'd never solely rely on a K2 meter. I think when you're considering the electromagnetic field anyway, generally day to day, there are so many variables and things that can affect that. I mean, if you're wanting to falsify evidence, you can do that fairly easily, I'd imagine, with a K2 meter, because I think magnets can trigger them, Wi-Fi signals, there's a lot of ways in which it can be manipulated. So although I do like to use the K2 meter, especially when I find I'm in a situation where I can't explain it any other way. It's a controlled environment. I'm not touching the K2 meter, no one else is. Then it's a good visual response tool, but I'd only use it alongside others.
What kind of anomalies did you find during your long research?
Various things, some more regularly than others. I've experienced audible things, so footsteps, scratching noises, drops in temperature, anything that you would hope to experience if you were going to a haunted location or a haunted building. But of course, these things don't happen easily, and a case can take me years. I may hear something and then experience nothing for 6 months. But it's a case of building up all of those experiences to try and build a bigger picture. I've had visual experiences. I was part of a group session once, and we all had, it was a group hallucination. We all saw a Ouija board catch fire on the table, and then 3 seconds later it was out and there were no signs of fire. So there are quite a few. I mean, you can have visual, audible, physical touches, cold sensations, feeling that someone's next to you.
Have you ever been attacked physically?
No.
No, physical not. Have you ever been attacked, menaced by demoniac entities after a research?
I haven't, no. I haven't. As I say, I think it's incredibly rare. And I think even in cases where people feel they've been physically approached, physically touched, attacked, or even, something thrown at them, it doesn't always necessarily mean that you're dealing with something demonic. Human spirits can become very frustrated and very angered if they feel that their message isn't coming across, or they're not being recognised. So thankfully, no, I've never been physically attacked. As I say, I've definitely suffered mental attack and psychic drain, which usually manifests as a series of prolonged headaches, fatigue, sometimes nausea. And in those cases, I tend to have to end my work and take some time out, because I don't think you could keep your sanity if you try to do this kind of work all the time.
You are lucky.
Yes. So far.
Yeah, so far. How do you find those kind of dolls? Do you buy them or somebody asks you to analyze them?
Yeah, we rarely go out looking for objects to study now. I mean, I used to scour places looking for study pieces to work with, but now we get contacted by people asking for help in the way that they would contact a paranormal investigation team if they felt their house was haunted. We get contacted by people who feel that they've got an item that's attached to an energy or causing a haunting.
I have a personal question. How to find the Peggy the doll? How to find it?
How did Peggy come to us?
Yeah.
Last year, I think it was September, I received an email from a lady who told me that she'd been having prolonged headaches, very vivid dreams, nightmares in fact, and just generally been feeling unwell. And she'd had this doll for about 15 years and always felt a little bit uneasy about her, but not really known why. And for some reason, she believed that this doll, that Peggy, was at the centre of what was happening. I went along and I took Hazel, who's a psychic medium that I work with, and instantly Hazel knew. She looked at the doll and she nodded at me and she said, yes, that doll is definitely at the centre of what's going on here.
What do you think about this kind of haunting? Why these entities are linked to dolls?
Well, I think it all makes perfect sense if you believe in the afterlife and if you believe that the soul is eternal and that the soul continues. Not just dolls, but other treasured items, objects that people have a strong attachment to. And I do believe that in some cases where it is a doll that they've chosen to anchor their soul to, it's a good physical representation maybe of what they looked like in life, before they passed. We have had cases where those are the messages that reach us. But also, more often than not, it tends to be an object that holds a very strong connection for that person. So it could be a wedding ring or just something that they feel is a very treasured item and they don't want to lose purely because they've passed over into spirit. Items that we wear every day absorb our energy. So there's always an element of residual energy. Part of us is retained by an item and connected to one even before death. So I think the more you kind of think about it and read about cases of it, you think, well, actually, rather than remaining in somewhere like a graveyard or an abandoned building, why would spirit choose to do that necessarily if there were another option?
Your website is Haunted Doll?
Haunted-dolls.com.
Okay, can you repeat this?
It's haunted-dolls.com.
Perfect. It's possible adopt one of your dolls?
People can have a doll from the collection that we've studied. We have to go through a bit of a screening process with everyone and find out exactly why they want to own an item showing paranormal activity, what the intentions with it are. It's not a case that we've got a huge amount of dolls to give out to everyone. Once we finish working with a doll, we'll feed back on our findings and then sort of a two-way process. But yeah, absolutely, as long as we feel that someone will offer a good home, then yes, we'll help facilitate that.
Okay. The interview is finished. Thank you, Jayne. I have one request for you.
Okay.
Say it in Italian, dai de GIAP. It's translated, yeah, GIAP, dai de GIAP. Why?
Dai de GIAP.
Repeat, dai de GIAP.
Dai de GIAP.
Yeah. Thanks, Jayne.
Thank you so much.